Now we're going to talk about absolute value equations and inequalities. So the first thing we need to figure out is what is the definition of absolute value, because if you don't understand that, you won't be able to understand how to do these equations and inequalities. So turn this off for just a second. Write down what you think the definition of absolute value is, and then come back and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so absolute value is the distance a number is from 0 on the number line. Distance is a very important word here, because think about it, can distance ever be negative? Well, the answer to that is no. You cannot have a negative distance. Distance is always positive. So here's the thing, and in order to do absolute value, we show that by doing bars. These are called absolute value bars. And so if I have the absolute value of 4, what that means is just a moment here, let me get this written. Okay, so what that means is excuse me, go to 4 on the number line, and how many spaces does it take you to get back to 0? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. It took me 4 spaces. If I had the absolute value of -4, all that means is go to -4 on the number line, and how many spaces does it take me to get back to 0? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it took me 4 spaces, okay? So what we are going to work on now are absolute value equations and inequalities, okay? So what if we said the absolute value of x equals 4, okay? Well, what are all our possibilities for our answers? Think about this just a moment and then come back. Okay, so our x could be 4 because when I check this, the absolute value of 4 is 4. And does 4 equal 4? It absolutely does. However, it could also be -4 because when I check this, the absolute value of -4 is 4. So I could have this be, x could be either 4 or -4, okay? Now, when we have an equal sign, we can only have 1 or 2 numbers, okay? X equals either this thing or that thing, and that's it, nothing else. In this case, plus or minus 4, okay? But when we start getting into inequalities, which means things are not equal, and we will have greater than or less than, or greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to, okay? So let's do our example here. Okay, so what if the absolute value of x is greater than 4? Well, let's think about all the possibilities that x could be, okay? All right, so if I made x be 0, oops, sorry about that. The absolute value of 0 is 0. Is 0 greater than 4? It is not. So what if I made it be, let's say, -1? The absolute value of -1 is 1. Is 1 greater than 4? No. So it's looking like this is not between 4 and 4. Let's try something on the other side of 4. Let's try 5. What if x is 5? So the absolute value of 5 is 5. And is 5 greater than 4? Yeah. So that means that going in this direction, because I could do 6, 7, 8, they would all work. But let's try this as well. What about if I had the absolute value of -5? Okay. Well, the absolute value of -5 is 5. Again, is 5 greater than 4? It is. So I could do -6 and -7, etc. But what we have here now is a range of things, okay? Everything beginning with 4, actually just a little bit to the left of 4, because this isn't also equal to. If it was also equal to, then it would be exactly 4. All the way up to, and what's on this side? This arrow means positive infinity. And I'm sorry, I can't draw infinity, so I just do a double zero hooked together. And this one on the other side is going in this direction forever until we get to negative infinity. Now, when we draw these on the number lines, I don't want to see the positive and negative infinity, and I just want these as simple as can be. We'll get to how to draw these and how to do interval notation in just a minute. Okay, let's look at another scenario. What if I had the absolute value of x is less than 4? Okay, so let's look at our number line again. You notice how I put arrows on both ends. That's to show me that it's going in this direction forever and in this direction forever. Okay. All right. Now, let's look at over here. We knew this, the last one was 5. So what if we took the absolute value of 5? I always want to put equals. Be careful of that, guys. You'll want to do it too. The absolute value of 5 is 5. Is 5 less than 4? No, it's not. Okay. What about if I tried something between these? Let's try 3. So the absolute value of 3 is 3. Is 3 less than 4? It is. Let's try the other way. What if we did the absolute value of -5? Well, the absolute value of -5 is 5. Is 5 less than 4? It is not. Let's try this. The absolute value of -3. So what's the absolute value of -3? That's 3. Is 3 less than 4? Absolutely. So now that means our range of what x can be is everything between these 4s. Okay? So here's the rule of thumb. Okay? If you have, and this is just completely generic, and I'm going to change our signs because that is what we worry about or what we need to look for. Okay, so this x is the only thing that would be the variable. The a, the b, and the k would all be numbers. Okay? All right? And then we would have the absolute value of ax plus b, can also be minus, greater than, could, whoops, I wanted to do this in a different color so that you really understand this is what we're looking for. could also be greater than or equal to, okay? Just so you know, either way, okay? And then our third scenario is the absolute value of ax plus b, could be plus or minus, is less than, or could be less than or equal to, okay? And to k. All right, so when you are doing these equations or inequalities, because this one's an equation and these two are inequalities, okay? When you are doing that, if the sign is equal, then you are going to write two separate equations. And your final answer, so write, and your final answer will be x equals one or two numbers. And if it's plus or minus, then it would just be plus or minus the number. Okay? If our sign is greater than or equal to, again, we are going to write two equations. And I'm going to show you how to do this. And our answer is in interval, and we'll talk more about this in a minute. Oops, I can't spell it, I-N-T. Just a second, I-N-T-E-R-V-A-L, notation, okay? And this one, if the sign is less than or equal to, we are going to write one equation, and our answer is going to be in interval notation. Interval notation is only used with inequalities, because it is a range of numbers. So our inequalities will always be from this number to this number, or between this number and this number, okay? It's always going to be a range of numbers. So then we use interval notation, okay? Equations are always just one number, maybe two. X equals that number or that one, can never have interval notation, okay? This equation, never interval notation, because it's not a range of stuff. It is just this equals this thing or that thing, okay? All right, so I hope you've please write all this down and then bring it to the next video, because I'm going to start doing examples for you on how we do this and what this interval notation stuff means and how all this looks, okay? So write this down, bring it with you to the next video.